Hello and welcome to the Gifted Ed Podcast. I am your host, Megan McCarthy. We are grateful for the opportunity to share this space with you today as we talk about the complexities of giftedness. This is going to be a two-part series about the critical role play serves in developing creativity, problem solving, and emotional growth in gifted learners of all ages. By the end of this episode, you will have a better understanding of how gamification can deepen engagement and rigor for gifted students. You will also have some ideas and strategies to help you use meaningful play within the classroom. Today, we are excited to welcome Lisa Wiltz and Eric Youngquist to the Gifted Ed Podcast. Lisa has been an educator for 39 years. After completing a double major in elementary education and French, she taught in K through 2. She then received a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and earned an endorsement in gifted education.
When you're in a play situation, there are opportunities for you to explore things that you might find challenging, and there aren't as many consequences to failing.
Over the decades, she has presented on topics of development and the importance of play. She is currently teaching pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. This is Eric's 22nd year in education. He has a BA in history with teacher preparation and a master's in reading and instruction.
Am I going to get more from 3 days of engagement through a game or a week of lecturing normally, reading out of a textbook? I always go for I'm going to get more if they're engaged.
Along with teaching social studies, Eric currently runs a strategic gaming club and a debate club. Welcome, Lisa and Eric. We're so happy that you're here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, this is a wonderful topic, so it's something we're excited to share with you.
So let's start off with the most important question, and Lisa, I'll turn it to you. Why does play matter for gifted learners?
It's really the foundation of all learning. When you think about science, scientific inquiry begins with noticing and wondering and being able then to ask questions and explore, and that leads to all of that scientific method that we then start to highlight as children progress. It is also the foundation for literacy. Again, asking questions and noticing, and that verbal banter that children have when they're playing and developing their vocabulary is the foundation for writing. And for reading, children must have the ability to put pictures on the frames in their mind. And that comes from visualizing, from exploring, from interacting with things around them, and from interacting with people. So when you think about what is play, play is something that children want to repeat. It's something exploratory. It's discovery-based. And the most beautiful thing about play is that it's a safe zone. So children can reach out and try things that they might not want to try in a typical environment, in a learning environment. And taking risks is something that we ask all children to do throughout their educational career. So having the opportunity within play, both in structured and unstructured, they're allowed the ability to think deeply, to think critically, to see multiplicity of outcome, many different ways to arrive at a particular outcome, or many different ways to have an end result. So I think of all of those things as the soft cognitive skills, which are so important in having a flexible mindset and being able to adapt and make change in our daily living.
Yeah. I think foundation is such a just perfect word for it. Just obviously my role as social worker, it's that relation with others, right? It's a key way to relate to others, but all then the literacy, the all those foundational skills, I'm then thinking, Eric, obviously within the middle school setting, those are all transferable cognitive flexibility to what is required within the middle school.
So, I mean, social studies can be a kind of dry subject. Like, why don't people like social studies? It's a list of dates, times, things that happened. Play, like simulation, is what allows you to see why the things actually happened. I could say 50 times to the kids, all right, well, the Greek city-states didn't get along with each other because they were too different. Well, that's great. Are you going to remember that? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to understand how that affected things? Probably not. If I simulate what happened through a kind of game to understand how this happened, you can see how human interactions happen, why things turned out the way they did. And that teaches you that history is an interplay of so many different things. So we just finished a Peloponnesian War simulation where they had to be different city-states, and they had a situation. A colony wants to break away. They learned how this suddenly multiplied into bigger issues, why the city-states couldn't agree with each other. And then you debrief at the end. Why couldn't you all be friends with each other? Why couldn't you come to a peaceful situation? Well, Mr. Youngquist, you said on the sheet that I get a better grade if I crush my enemies. Like, you could be manipulated by a couple words on a page? Well, yeah, it's my grade. Well, how's that any different than a Greek city-state whose parents have told you to hate this other one for so long? Oh, wow, that was really easy. Why did you side with this person? Well, they made a better case for me. Oh, you negotiated with them. Oh, yeah. You had to get up and speak in front of people. How did it feel? Well, it felt good. I listened to this person's speech. They were able to be so much more, descriptive about why it would be better for them. So it's all these kind of soft skills that I think schools have gotten away from. How do you interact with people? How do you have a formal discussion without getting mad at each other? How do you plan contingencies on things that might happen and hedge your bets? And we had this great discussion about, oh yeah, my city-state was smaller. I had to keep everybody happy with me. I learned to not say what I really wanted, but to manipulate other people behind their backs, or to have a goal in mind and have to plan it out 3 steps ahead of time. That's the useful stuff. How often do you need to know who won the Peloponnesian War?
Yeah.
I don't think, other than my career, that's going to happen very often. But learning how multiple parties have to come together and how hard it is to negotiate and how you do that, that's the skill that you really need in the real world.
Yeah.
And people often cut back on social studies because, well, why do you need to know it? You can look it up. Well, social studies, if you're doing it correctly, is all the things that make that history happen. And the what happened is only about 10% of it.
You've put them in the human experience of what it was to make the decisions and to relate to people or not relate to people, or have to make those decisions of manipulation versus,
and honesty and risk and reward. When we do the Roman simulation, the Roman senators, they have to talk about, well, should we be helping our citizens or expanding our power for later? And having to do the guns versus butter that shows up in later U.S. history when they're talking about spending for America and other things, the cost-benefit analysis of stuff. I could explain it to you as a middle schooler, but what's going to make you remember it?
Yeah.
What's going to make it real and concrete for you is actually having to go through it and realizing all those ramifications, that what you do actually matters. And driving that home for the middle schoolers is why I love doing simulations, games, and other things, because it's what teaches you that things have consequences and how many different factors go into history rather than this person did this. That's what I want them to walk away with.
Well, especially at a developmental age where they are supposed to be really focused on themselves, right? A lot of times teenagers or preteens get that reputation of too focused on themselves, but that is exactly what their brains are supposed to be doing. And so to bring in that empathy piece is huge, just to not have it so detached from their own decision-making, from their own, how would I react if I was in that?
And have an in-person conversation where you need to give and take. You need to debate, but not get angry, to be able to see yourself as somebody else. That is very important.
So a big piece is just how can schools balance the academic expectations with time for meaningful play, as we know how full plates are.
Well, absolutely. And I think as educators, we're driven to make sure that certain concepts are experienced by the children. There is a wonderful preschool educator who has now passed. Her name is Bev Boss. And one of the things that she has taught us is that if it hasn't been in the body and the hand, it can't be in the brain. So children really have to have experiential learning for it to make that connection. Going back to what Eric was speaking about before, you can tell children something, but if they haven't experienced it, really isn't going to resonate with them. And making the time for children to have those experiences will reap the benefits later with the comprehension piece. In the younger grades, I think time can be and is actually afforded for play. It's structured into the day, where there are different kinds of play. There is near-point vision play, where the children play at the extension of their hands, and that helps them with hand-eye coordination. It helps them with the soft skills of playing near someone and sharing pieces and trading and playing fairly. So that type of play is written into our daily experiences. Then they also need to have dramatic play, which again, you can see how that evolves as children mature through the grades. During that dramatic play, they're working on compromise. They're working on those negotiation skills. They're working on staying in a role. So if someone is the castle guard, they will have to employ their executive function to stand really still to make sure that, they're playing that role and staying in character. And it builds a child's stamina, and it builds their resilience. When they're playing with blocks and the whole thing comes crumbling down, they have to develop some coping strategies to then figure out what can we do next as a group, and having that common goal. So the younger grades, I think that it's inherently a part of what we do, definitely through kindergarten. It's written into the curriculum as having that choice time. And having choice time also builds those executive function skills of being able to evaluate and plan and prioritize. So they have to make choices about how they will spend their time and how much attention they're going to give to any particular scenario in which they're playing. I think that sometimes it shifts then throughout school to be the recess time, and then recess becomes a huge I hate to call it academic. What do I want to call it? A huge learning time. Where they're still exploring all those concepts that they have been practicing since they were preschoolers, but they have to do it independently now. The guides on the side are sometimes pretty far away, so they have to figure out all those negotiation and compromise situations on their own. So when children are learning to be empathetic, where they notice that other people have opinions, and that's an important developmental milestone, and it's something that we can guide as educators to say, how might that person have felt when you took the block without asking, and helping them to understand that empathy piece. And as they mature, they start to be able to see another person's point of view. And that's really the foundation of empathy, is being able to understand that other people have opinions that differ from your own. So being able to look at a situation and understand that some people can have a varying opinion is really pivotal in that growth of empathy.
That opinion isn't wrong, right? Like that's the biggest piece.
Absolutely. Right. That people can have varying opinions, and one is not necessarily, that in air quotes, the right one.
So at what age would you say that students typically develop, or children typically develop, empathy?
It really is a progression of skills. So children start out playing near each other. They start out as parallel playing, and they might share the materials, but they really aren't interacting at all. And that would be around age 3. Parallel play is really a core type of situation that you will see. As children hit that 4-year milestone, they start to be able to engage some with each other and have some situations where they are playing together and working as a team. As children mature through their preschool year and then get toward the kindergarten age, and definitely in kindergarten, they start to notice that other people can have varying opinions from their own. and they start to open up and get eyes for the world around them. Because prior to kindergarten, they really are very focused on themselves. It's about me and it's about my needs and what I need, as they should be, because that's what they need to do. And then developing all the way through second grade, they start to put in little kernels of empathy by being able to understand other people's viewpoints, and by having those experiences where they have been either guided or notice the way that people respond when things go awry.
So the other piece, I know we connected kind of empathy from the littles to middle school, but the piece that we talked about, I think earlier, was risk taking. And that stuck out to me because of the gifted experience of all of this, right? So I think sometimes the game or the play experience can be used to practice things we're already good at and that feel good. And that's probably everyone's natural tendency is to do things that we're good at. It's uncomfortable, right? To do things that we're not as good at. And sometimes then that's where games even become a bigger use, because then it's like if we're struggling with math, and then math, there's an extra math game we can play, it kind of increases the engagement on something that's not if that's the student's profile. But the importance of risk-taking within the gifted brain, right, is just so huge when we're thinking of development too, as tasks become more demanding and as school becomes more demanding and as everything becomes more demanding, that need to take risks, and doing it in a safe setting with play is probably the best way to kind of start that.
I love that word safe, because I think that really is at the basis of all of this. When you feel safe, then you feel more comfortable in taking a risk. And if you don't feel comfortable, it starts to snowball into perfectionism. And when you're in a play situation, there are opportunities for you to explore things that you might find challenging. And there aren't as many consequences to failing. Yeah. It gives you that opportunity to feel like I can try something about which I'm not very strong.
And a lot of games are set up where there's a winner and a loser. Like the game's over when someone wins, and if someone wins, everyone else loses. With a test, everyone can get 100%, right? Like that's an option. And so I feel like that just innate quality of a game, not all games are set up that way, but
typically
many are. And so you're going into an environment that someone's going to lose, I think is also just a good experience to have as a kid.
And I would say that in preschool, often parents let children win the game because they don't want them to lose or to have that disappointing feeling. But as we progress into the schools now, and definitely at pre-K 4 and kindergarten, if it is a game of chance, they need to understand that it's a game of chance. And sometimes you lose because it's a game of chance. Some games are games of skill, which might be as you mature and you get into organized sports and things like that, there's a game of skill. But when it's a game of chance like Candyland, sometimes you get knocked right back to the beginning. Yeah. And that's okay.
Stinking plumpy.
Eric, is there anything, I guess, just from your standpoint, where you've struggled, or just how you've handled that balance between academic expectations and play?
Well, I think social studies is kind of special in the fact that it's not directly tested anywhere. So it should be the place where you get to do the soft skills, the things that the other classes can't get to. I kind of look at it as, short-term reward. We can get through a ton of content that they don't remember. Versus long-term reward, can I teach them the skills that they're going to need elsewhere and other people will appreciate more?
Yeah.
Am I going to get more from 3 days of engagement through a game or a week of lecturing normally, reading out of a textbook? And I always go for, I'm going to get more if they're engaged. And the game we aren't just sitting there playing a game. The game is there to teach them something, whether they realize it at the beginning or not. The lit teachers, the advisors, absolutely hate the week that they do any of my simulations because it's all the kids talk about and think about, and they're dealing and talking strategy and other things, and therefore I know I've won because they are focused on all the variables that go into this, talking to their classmates. If he does this, I'm going to do this, and that's a skill that you really aren't going to teach outside of games. And games have gone away in most of the our community world today. It used to, before there was tons of TV and online gaming, you would sit down and play with your parents. You would do Monopoly with the family. And then it went to, well, everybody's video gaming, but at least we're all in the same console in somebody's basement, and I'm still talking. And now I'm yelling at a screen away from each other. And I think community has seen that they've lost the ability to interact, win, lose, etc., how to talk to people, negotiate. And I'm one of the places where it can come back.
Yeah.
So the game is, yes, it's taking away 3 days that they could be reading and annotating. But the game is teaching them how to speak forcefully. It's teaching them, when we go into it, we do research about who they're going to be ahead of time so they can embody it. And all of a sudden they're thinking about their past. And then you debrief on it. And in the process, you're going to learn a little bit about warfare. You're going to learn a little bit about how government works. I taught my kids what Robert's Rules of Order look like so they could understand a congressional debate, or if they ever went into student government, they've actually done all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then this carries over. All right, so I've given 2 days to a game, but my kids presented beforehand. They spoke during. When they get to architecture fair, science fair, when they get to high school and they have to go and talk to somebody, my kids have presented in front of their classmates 20, 30, 40 times during the year, formally, informally, etc. They're that much better spoken. They have sat there and talked about how to negotiate a compromise. They have figured out the tie between economics, politics, and other things. They have taken notes while multiple other students are speaking, and then have to, do a quiz or something on it. The skills that they get out of a lot of these simulations are the ones that a lot of teachers don't take the time to teach.
Yeah.
Especially when they get to high school. So if they haven't gotten it from me, they're going in at a disadvantage. And that's something I don't think as an educator that I could, live with myself if I wasn't preparing them to go out and be more successful through these kinds of simulations and other things.
Well, and I'm hearing you say you teach the skills that are transferable.
Right.
Right? Like that true, false data or facts memorization. And sometimes we do need that at times, for sure. But that is not necessarily a transferable skill when it comes to all parts of social studies.
Right.
But speaking with confidence, engaging people, interpersonal skills.
Yep. Taking turns.
Yeah.
Winning and losing.
Yeah.
All of those things are things that need to be taught, that they want us to teach their SEL lessons and other things, but they're going to get it through this. And the engagement, once again, the simulation or anything isn't the end goal. It should chain into something else and use that engagement or discussion for them to then go deeper into something and do better. So chain the Peloponnesian War into the DBQ, the document-based question, the essay about why didn't Greece ever unite? If I went into this normally, all right, so I dropped this DBQ, I told you during the Peloponnesian War, Athens and Sparta didn't get along with each other, and you're trying to figure out how to write from it. Great. You just lived it.
Yeah.
Your writing's going to be deeper. You have that connection and you're writing from it. And now all of a sudden you have a much better essay. And you're like, oh, this is how it should be done. That will carry on. So it's one quality versus quantity. I could write a whole bunch of DBQs, but if I teach them to write a really good one to begin with, I've saved everybody down the chain of education that much more time, effort, etc.
And we've kind of touched on this, but just how collaboration can be difficult for some gifted students. And so how does meaningful play or gamification kind of help build the positive interdependence and those social skills?
I like to say I put the social into social studies. We have house groups that they have to work with each other. And we can get into gamification and how that also plays into my classroom too. But they have worked with each other multiple times throughout the year, and I rearranged the groups, and they get used to the fact that my happiness depends on working with this other person. And we talk about how to be a good partner, sharing roles, taking turns. You have this role in the simulation, and you have to work together. So it forces them to learn collaboration to be successful, and they want to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the motivator to learn, I can't do this all myself. And I think for gifted kids, a lot of it is, I'm successful on my own. I'm smart. I'm good at this. All of a sudden, your success is based on the couple people you're working with, plus the couple people that you could or could not be working with outside of there. And all of a sudden, that motivation to be more open, to realize I need to work with other people, is put in through the game. And they learn, because a lot of them are cooperative, that I have to work with other people if I want to win and get that A. And they internalize that.
And I feel like that's probably such a stretch, maybe, that you see with the 3 and 4-year-olds, of just kind of the pathways that are entrenched, as probably with 3 and 4-year-olds especially. If I do it my way, I get it the way I want it to be. I can make it just perfect the way I want it to be.
Right.
And then how that transfers into but if we work together, the outcome of that being
Absolutely.
stronger.
Right. Well, taking turns is such a novel idea when you're 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to just practice fair ways to play. And the ways that we introduce fair ways to play, first one is taking turns. So you can take turns with an object. I'll wear the dress for 5 minutes, and then you get to wear the dress for 5 minutes, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can share. So we can share the same materials, and you take a part and I take a part. And then there is also trading. So I'll use this car and you use that one, but then I'd like to trade, and so they're very interrelated, but they are 3 different kinds of separate skills that we work on when we're talking about taking turns. And taking turns is, again, the foundation for playing any other sort of game. Whether it's organized sports later and it's your turn to bat or your turn to be in the field, it translates all the way up to what you're talking about, Eric, when you're taking turns in a more social studies environment. And sometimes, going back to that perfectionistic piece, children want to cheat because they want to come out on top. They want to be ahead. And the gifted brain allows them to see that they do want, how to get there, what they have to do to get to that objective of winning. So what we try to do with younger children is take away the me versus you and make it like the pawn in the game. So I'm going to be moving the yellow pawn and you're going to be moving the blue pawn, and let's see which one makes it to the finish line first, to take away that that feeling that they own a particular thing and make the winning their own, especially when it's something like a game of chance. We play a game that's literally called My Turn, Your Turn. So it's just set up on a line of Unifix cubes. The pawn is typically a little plastic bear, and he faces one direction when it's someone's turn, and he turns around and faces the other direction when it's that person's turn, and he just goes back and forth, kind of like that old game of tug of war, right? And then the object is to see which end the bear is going to jump off. Is he going to jump into the swimming pool, or is it going to jump into the lake? And so they can have investment in which way they want that bear to go. But when it's a game of chance. They're practicing the taking turns. They're practicing the small kernel of empathy, and understanding that someone else might get their choice over their own. But it diminishes the idea that you have to win in order to be good at it. Yeah. So what we really want to see with our gifted population is to diminish their feelings of perfectionism and just the desire to strive to do the best that they can. So
even just the I won versus I'm a winner, right? Or I won versus we won, right? Even just the use of that language. But to kind of like explore the gifted profile a little bit more within this is just when gifted students struggle with things not coming easily, how do you allow them to take accountability or make excuses or blame others or when something didn't go the way that they had planned?
Boy, that's really a huge part of the gifted personality, isn't it?
It's for us when we do these simulations, obviously somebody's going to come out better or worse, but it's to debrief about why it happened. And they like to dissect, well, this happened because this happened. Oh man, my kids hate it if we do any of the simulations where there's any kind of chance. They want full control. But they're able to put themselves out of it because, once again, what does this say about human nature when X, Y, and Z turns out? A simulation is meant to show you something about history, why it happened, and then if it deviates from history, why did it happen? What was that turning point? So instead of being mad that they lost, it's, well, what happened? How do we get there? What could we do better? Making it into a constructive criticism. And what can we learn about history from what happened? Why did it deviate? Why did it not turn out this way? And, how does that relate to cause and effect and the interplay between things that happen? Because one person did this isn't necessarily the whole story. Well, he did this because of this. And they love to examine the web of possibilities and things, alternate histories, etc. And then all of a sudden it isn't, well, I didn't do great. It's, I didn't realize this thing 3 things down the stream. I need to think ahead for next time. And it goes into, gifted kids are the ones who can see, the chessboard 4 or 5 moves, getting them to think ahead, anticipate, and how to pivot and accept things aren't always going to go well. Yeah. But I can make it better if I'm ready next time.
Well, and I love what you were doing is you're guiding them. You don't expect them to get there on their own. You have the debrief and you're kind of channeling those soft skills. And I think that in preschool, we do the same thing and giving them that word like, I can't do it yet. Especially when they get challenged by, whether it's something physical that they're trying to write or they can't stand on one leg or whatever it might be. And then we want to add that word, well, I didn't get it yet. Or if they don't get a turn at something, it can be very heartbreaking to a person to have their hand raised and not be able to share something. Yeah. And so then just practicing the self-talk and with them and saying, oh, well, I didn't get to share this time. And then having, guiding them to say, oh, well, or it didn't work out for me this time. And hopefully those kinds of skills, the yet and the self-talk of the, oh, well, not this time, will then translate into being more resilient and able to take disappointment as they mature.
Exploring kind of just different types of play and kind of pivoting a little bit. What role does unstructured play have compared to structured or gamified learning?
Unstructured play, there isn't a whole lot of time to kind of do that in a classroom. So a lot of the things I do, I have a lot of games in the back of my room. We do a lot of unstructured play time for advisory. We view being able to interact with people, being friends. It's a small school, so getting along with each other. We take one advisory a month, and it's board and card game day. Close the computers. You just have to go and sit with a deck of cards, with a board of some kind, and just interact with each other. And a lot of these kids are have so much structure to their lives, have X, Y, and Z activities.
Overscheduled.
For a number of them, overscheduled. For a number of them, the one day a month that they get to sit and play spoons with their classmates might be the only really unstructured times that they have. Oh, yeah. I've introduced that. I love the game Coup. It's kind of like an organized mafia. I bring it to all the debate tournaments when we're out doing high school level debates for unstructured time and when the novices have a chance. And it's all about deception, lying, and taking risks. And I love it because for debaters, it teaches them to keep their game face on and speak confidently because otherwise they're going to get called out, which is something hard for a lot of the debaters. Like, oh, this case is kind of weak. Well, you're a lawyer. You got to sell it. Well, how do I sell it? Here you go. Here's the card game. Play this game and convince everybody that you have the Duke when you don't have the Duke. And that teaches them to try different strategies, see what works, but most importantly, speak confidently. And there are a lot of games out there that can teach these skills either directly or indirectly if they have the chance to use them. And once again, board games and things, they've seen a little bit of a resurgence, but sitting down with your parents and playing a board game doesn't happen a lot.
Right.
More so probably, I would say, in the gifted families, but even then, not a lot. And just a lot of the skills that we all kind of grew up with have atrophied. And part of it is face-to-face interaction. And one of the ways to spend that face-to-face interaction time productively is playing a game, because you're going to be doing something and getting along with each other.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think maybe sometimes as maybe teachers, but I'm thinking of with my parent hat on, if I schedule a game night with my family, I'm excited to have fun. And I think it's important to realize it's probably going to be pretty miserable. Parts of it in the beginning, because you're going to have whining because people lost. Like, I think we go into it with our expectations because we remember how fun games were as kids, but we don't always realize, like, you have to work through the whining and the yelling or the difficulty losing, right? Because we have different needs within our own families, our own kids. So I think it's important to go into anything like that. If you are listening to this and you're like, I want to do a game night with my family, I wouldn't try it once and be like, it didn't work. I think it's one of those things that will
gets better the more you do it.
Because I'm thinking about this just in my own head.
I think with littles, we really have the opportunity to have both structured and unstructured in our environment. We start the day with structured play. We call them center times. We call them yes centers, where the children begin their day. And this happens in both the 3s and the 4s program, where they have specific things that are organized for them to do. The activities hit all the different domains. So there'll be a science type of activity and math and lit, and there's gross motor, there's movement, there's drama. So as teachers, we've set up a structured environment that has open-endedness and has a play feel for the children, but it is structured around all the different domains that we hope that they will experience. When we have lessons, we can build play into the average day. So as a math skill this last week, they were given the directions to create the restaurant's plates. So they had a plate, there were Unifix cubes, and there were cups. And on each plate, they were given individual orders that had the number that they needed to put of Unifix cubes that were different kinds of food onto the plate. And then the cup they had to fill with a particular number of ice cubes. And then those were then translated into number sentences, or as we know them, number equations, right? So it might be, you just created 3 + 4 = 7. And we could write it out then. And we're hitting through their playtime and through their imaginations all of the skills that we hope for them to walk away with, which is understanding that numbers go together to make numeric equations. So I think that in the younger grades, it really is part and parcel of what's happening with structured and unstructured environments to promote that authentic learning so that they can kind of hold on to it and then make it their own.
Now, unstructured time, too, I think we've downplayed how much you can learn just from a game. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've gone into a Jewel and somebody can't make change. Like, I learned how to do math playing Monopoly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's a basic skill. Like, I don't know, I'm a little weird, I'll admit. I learned my multiplication table trying to figure out how to do odds for rolling old Avalon Hill games, and I will always remember like where Stalingrad is because I was playing Axis and Allies and I fought over it so many times. I would honestly say that my geographical knowledge came during junior high playing a World War II game because I needed to know where all the countries were to go and, unfortunately, say invade them or defend them against people. Like that's probably why I ended. I can honestly tell you the moment I decided to be a social studies teacher, I didn't want to admit it to myself at the time, was I was in high school, freshman year, world history, and my social studies teacher did a simulation on Rome and the different classes of people. All right, you're a patrician. You get to go down to the lunchroom. You're a plebeian. You're free. You have to do this easier worksheet. you guys over here are slaves. You have to do this harder one. And then we could freeform, like, can we have a successful revolt? I thought this is so cool. I still remember it today. It's those memories of playing Avalon Hill war games with my dad and learning about history and all those things and playing Monopoly so I can do mental math very quickly. I think people don't always see that these are easy ways to have your kids learn basic skills that are also fun and are making memories.
And I think the impact of unstructured play, Lisa, you brought it up earlier, recess, right? Like if I know in third and fourth grade, forts, right, at recess is huge because there's full ownership of the kids. The amount of confidence that can come from that because they come up with the rules, they come up with who's making which fort. And I feel like each group kind of has like their own thing of what becomes so important to them at recess. Whether it's the potions that they make with the leaves and the twigs, right? Like there's always something that they gravitate towards, and it's full ownership, and it doesn't always go well in terms of like who's the lead and how do you decide who's the leader and how do you decide who's under the leader, and if they're absent that day, then who's taking over, right? All of that's been negotiated, but none of it is adult directed. It's completely them out at recess playing in the trees, which is, I feel like, such a meaningful, impactful, maybe different experience, Eric, than what you were talking about, but it was yours, right? Like that's the piece, is that you owned that, which then becomes so much more impactful.
It's memory making. And that's, and it's something that you want to repeat, which is, again, another tenet of play. Something that you want to repeat is play.
And potentially become your profession.
Yep.
So we wanted to end with our reflection questions. Based on what you heard in today's discussion, what feature of play has you most excited to pursue? When you reflect on your curriculum, is there a part of your curriculum where you can embed the element of play meaningfully? We want to thank you for joining us in this space today. Please subscribe to the Gifted Ed podcast to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Stay tuned for our next episode that continues to unpack the complexities of giftedness.